Right, indeed, Hussein. Just a quick correction there. We're not at the Milimani Court. We're actually at the Supreme Court of Nairobi that houses the Court of Appeal. And as you're rightfully saying, these talks, quote-unquote, collapsed on Friday. There was a stalemate, and the talks were then called off until they could have met, which they did last evening, to finalize on the report that they will be giving the three-judge appellate bench here this morning. Now, what we do know so far, Hussein, is that during this week, in as much as they have been keeping it silent, the doctors' officials have been meeting with senior members of church leadership, and they have been trying to find a way where the church can also come in and try to find a solution to this, because these talks that were led by the KNCHR and the LSK did not essentially bring together the government and the doctors' officials in terms of getting consensus, particularly on three issues. Hussein, one is postgraduate studies for doctors, how they will be able to work that out, as well as this particular question of the consensus on pay proposals. The government is insisting on its 40% pay proposal. They're saying they cannot go any higher. The doctors' officials are asking them to improve on this offer. Now, a lot has been said as to do with the implementation date of the CBA, if at all they were able, or they would have been able rather, to find middle ground on these issues. The doctors saying that they would want this CBA implemented immediately and with arrears. The government saying that this can only take effect in July. And so these are the three key issues that remained in as far as their discussions went on. We do understand that in these meetings that they have been holding with senior clergymen, the clergymen expressing their interest to come in, and whichever way today will go once this report is presented by the mediation team, the clergy who have as well, Hussein, accompanied them here to court, would want to come in and try see if they can salvage this situation, become the mediators if the court does not decide to go the arbitration way. These are the things that we will be seeing in just a few minutes as this mediation report is presented. Hussein, we are also trying to confirm information that we're getting that President Uhuru Kenyatta is himself trying to personally get involved in this by way of the clergymen who will be giving him a report as well on their meeting with the doctors' officials that has been happening on Monday, Tuesday and yesterday. Early morning meetings that they have been having closed door before they went last evening to CVS Plaza, the mediation team that has been the government side, the doctor side, and as well as the mediators. The details of that report, Hussein, we will be giving you as it is presented before this three-judge bench.
Right, Jackie, and the question is, do you expect this other process to have a bearing on what is happening in the courts? Because the reports we have is that the Anglican Archbishop, Jackson Recipient, and the head of the Catholic Church, John Cardinal Jue, like you've rightly said, have also been trying to mediate this process, but it's a parallel process with the President of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, that they'll meet today. So will that have a bearing on what is happening in the courtroom?
Right, to say this depends on the report that will be presented by the mediators, because in the meetings that they had and when they hit that final stalemate on Friday and they decided to call off the talks and meet again only last evening to finalize on the report, each side wanted what they have been presenting on the table for the past 7 days to be put in the report that the mediators will be bringing to court. And that is how then in the past 3 days, Hussein, the clergymen now came in and they will be meeting President Uhuru Kenyatta, and that is what we will be listening into just now, because court is officially in session. Hussein.
Kilonzo, George Ouma, for the applicant. For the first respondent is Ms. Eunice Lumala. For the interested parties is Mr. Kamal, Ms. Kola Mbilo, and Ms. Amelia Tinda, and Mr. Lempa for the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and for the Law Society is Mr. Rao Bura. Those are the appearances. Mr. Kamau. Yes, Mr. Kamau is appearing for
Mutinda. Mutinda, not Kamau.
I'm so sorry. For the interested parties. I'm so sorry. Kola Mbilo. Interested parties. Yes. I don't have the name with me. If I don't mention anybody, probably I'll sit down and then we have the full court. It's for mention. The matter is for mention. I'm so sorry. The matter is for mention. There was a mediation process which was going on, which was being conducted by the Law Society of Kenya and the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. We were required to record or file a report. The mediators to file a report before today's mention. I understand that the report is ready, it has been filed, but I understand there is a new development, and as the court probably can observe, the leaders of the faith organizations are here in court, and they have been in touch with the parties, as I understand it. So, subject to the court's directions, and before they do so, you could probably hear Mr. Rao Bura, but subject to the court's direction, probably the leaders of the faith organizations could be allowed to address the court on the efforts they've been making on this matter. And they are represented at the highest levels. If the court may allow me, there is Mr. Sheikh Adan Wachu, who is the Secretary General of SUPKEM and Chairman of the Interreligious Council of Kenya, Bishop Alfred Rotich of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, whom I know has participated in the other mediation processes. And there is representing Cardinal John Jewett. There is Right Reverend Julius Gontai Mwamba, moderator of the PCA. And finally, there's the Archbishop Jackson Odessa Pitt of the Anglican Church. So subject to the court's direction, probably we could allow one of them to tell us if there is any progress in what they've been doing. But I leave it to the Law Society to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Your Ladyship and Your Lordship. Indeed, we have been engaged in a mediation process which has taken us 2 weeks to try and narrow the differences between the parties in this dispute. And as at yesterday, we had reached a kind of a consensus in a number of issues which left only a few, in fact 3 issues pending as per the report which is tabled before you. And our efforts at that stage has reached what we may call the best we could do. And the efforts we made reached a stage where we can say it is the best we could do. We could not reach an agreement on the remaining 3 items, which are mainly touching on basic wages or basic salaries, And we were going to leave it to the court so that the matter takes its own course. But we came to learn this morning that the members of the faith community would like to take the matter slightly forward from where we had reached. And we welcome that. Probably what we would suggest is that give them a chance to try and see if they can reconcile the parties on the 1 or 2, 3 remaining issues. If they do, probably we would welcome it and compile our final report as the mediators who are recognized by the court in this matter, and maybe submit our final reports to the court. What we have in court at the moment can be treated as a preliminary report for the time being to allow the church, the faith community to try their best and reconcile the parties of the
but the report filed can be treated as a preliminary.
Yeah, according to us, it should be treated as a preliminary report. Indeed, we were hoping that the court would not look at it until it is done. But now that it has been filed,
yes,
we can treat it as a...
Then why did you file it?
No, it was not upon us, it was upon the mediator to do so.
It was our order.
Yeah, order to do so.
We can return it to you.
Yes. But I think it's right here.
Yes.
Honorable Justice, Lady Justice Koome and Honorable Justices, Lumala Tunis for the first respondent in this matter. Indeed, when we came to court on the 15th, first respondent, yes, Council of County Government. When we were here in court on 15th of February, the court made some orders. One of those orders, number 2, was that the first one was to release the containers, and the second one was to ensure that there is restoration of normalcy in the public health sector.
Yes.
Now, what we have before us today, and I think one of the things that we have to really do in terms of this matter is to really face the truth and to speak truthfully, both as counsel, whom I respect a lot, and as we have our panel of mediators in court, and as opposing counsel, I think it's in the interest of everyone to have this matter resolved, and the truth would be part of the process of resolving the matter. Okay. So we have the report here. It's from mediators. Mediation, as you're well aware, this wise court is aware that mediation is a process that follows certain procedures. And this mediation has run its course. The mediators have filed a report before this court. I have a copy of the report before me as well, where they say the mediators present this final report on the mediation and seek further direction from the court, given that parties failed to agree on key issues relating to the dispute. If parties have failed to agree on key issues, the mediators have presented a final report. What are we talking when we're saying we treat the report as a pending report? Really,
so what do you want us to do?
To treat the report as final and the mediation process as trend. Now, if we have our the clergy around who are interested in coming in as a fresh team of mediators, then we have no objection. Because it's in the interest of everyone to have this matter resolved. If they probably they can appeal to the spiritual side of the doctors and they can go back to work. That is what everybody is interested in, and we believe that they have that skill to do that. So we have no objection.
Okay.
But that is a fresh process.
Yes, thank you very much. The process is delicate, and therefore we appreciate the efforts of everybody that has been put towards resolving the dispute. And I think it is important for us to recognize what the mediators have done, and even working out issues and just teasing out a few issues that now they want to hand over to readers to take it forward. This is an extraordinary matter that has taken so long. Here in the Court of Appeal, we don't do mentions, but we have found ourselves just mentioning it over and over, hoping that it will be resolved. But Munoz was addressing us.
Now, I want to say this. What is before the court are contempt proceedings.
Yes.
An appeal from contempt proceedings.
Yes.
I mean, in reality, if we were to go on with those contempt proceedings, does it have a process which has failed?
I think Ms. Rumula is also appreciative of that.
Yes, yes.
That perhaps we have to deal with a substantive matter.
Yes.
That is the dispute of the doctor's pay and whatever is left involved, right?
Yes.
And that is, I think, why you abandoned that attempt and came up with the consent that
Precisely.
suspending the sentencing until you resolve it.
Precisely.
And that is going back to where people were, and that's where you are, where we started.
Yes.
Negotiating.
Yes.
And that is what has been happening. And we don't want to abandon it because I think it is.
In fact, my lady, probably you misunderstood me.
Yes.
What I'm saying that what we are doing now is critical and important, and we recognize the role that the court has undertaken well beyond what is immediately before the court.
Yeah.
And we don't want any good work done by any institution to be tarnished. I think it should remain as part of the record of the efforts which have been made.
Yes.
Even the trial court, I mean the industrial court, as far as I'm concerned, has done its best.
Yes.
And that is part of the record.
Yes.
What the Law Society has done is part of the record.
Yes.
So if the faith organization leaders can help us build on what has already been achieved, then I think we should bend over backwards to jump on this alternative process of resolving the problem. And to that extent, that's why we are saying we have no objection with the faith leaders coming into it, but at the same time treat it as part of an ongoing process.
So at least we have made one progress, that the report that was filed is part of the record and is part of the ongoing process, so that the faith-based organization takes the negotiations from there to another record. So,
maybe my lady?
Yes.
Yes, my lady, Mutinda, for the interested party, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Health.
Yes.
My lady, the position that was conveyed to us was that the mediation had somehow failed, and that's why my colleague for the respondent said that it appears there was no agreement.
Yes.
We appreciate, my lady, that, and the court has observed that what was before the court were certain proceedings in respect of solution of the matters before the court. And the parties chose to go for mediation and negotiations to find a solution. We appreciate the efforts that the clergy now seems to be wanting to undertake in respect of these matters, and we would support it. But my lady, there is also the other side of the coin. The public health sector has suffered for quite some time, and there is need for a balance. So in as much as, my lady, we may be inclined to allow further mediation by the clergy, it's also important that the court sets time within which that process should go on, and a report filed before the court, So that if there is no agreement, then the court can say its jurisdiction and determine the issues subject of dispute. My lady, we also want to observe that it would have been very helpful to the court for their mediators to tell the court what are the sticking points, what is remaining that there is no agreement. There must have been progress. The last time there was 70%, 80% progress. What is the sticking point? It's important to know. And from where I stand, from the position of the the interested party, the sticking points are majorly salary and training. As you recall, my lady, and the constitution is there. Salaries for public officers, they are set by the SRC. It's a body, it's a constitutional body with that mandate. And it's important to know whether that is the issue or not, but it should come from the mediators, my ladies.
Are they not involved with the SRC in this negotiation? Is the SRC involved?
My lady, we had not seen the report. The report was just filed this morning. It had not been served on us.
Yes.
And
now, when you say salaries
yes,
cannot be fixed by anybody, this is a negotiating team that includes, I suppose, includes everybody, including SRC and the Treasury. And they involved?
Yes, they are involved, and that's why we are saying, my lady. Yes. It's important to know what are the sticking points, so that as we move forward.
I think Mr. Obura said,
yes, my lady.
There are three issues. The salary.
Yes.
And I think the CBA.
That's true.
The CBA.
That's correct, my lady.
Yes.
Yes. And that's what we are saying, my lady.
Yeah.
We want to allow the clergy an opportunity. We are not opposed to that.
Yes.
They can have an opportunity to at least appeal to the parties to the dispute.
Yes.
And then we can file a report soonest possible.
Okay.
So that if there is no solution, then the court can get resolve the matters that are before the court.
Yes.
Yes.
Your Ladyship, we seem to be more or less in agreement that the clergy be allowed to make a last-ditch effort, and probably the best the court can do for us is to let us come back maybe early next week to file a final report. Yes, I think that would be the best.
Which date are you talking about?
And probably before the court gives us a date, I don't know whether the clergy has any spokesperson who might want to, with the permission of the court, please.
They need to be here.
These are extraordinary circumstances that require divine intervention.
Most of them. Thank you.
We welcome them to court. Maybe we will have a solution now that the men of God have come to court.
Thank you, Your Lord. My name is Adam White, the Secretary General of the Council of Feminism and the Chair of the Interreligious Council of Kenya. The Interreligious Council of Kenya is a coalition of all the faiths we do have in this country. We have the Catholics, we have the Protestants, we have the Anglicans, we have the Pentecostals, we have the Hindus, we have the Shias, and everybody is on board. My Lord, as religious leaders, we've been away from the eyes and the ears of ordinary Kenyans and the press for the last 3 days to arrive to a decision which brings us here this morning. It's been a very, very tough assignment, but very cordial, because a lot of pastoral activities are involved and been very successful. And to that end, we have been oscillating between the doctors and the government extremely closely and cordial. And we are about to reach the epitome of the whole process. As religious leaders, we felt that there is no mission that cannot be accomplished. The only mission that cannot be accomplished from our spiritual point is bringing back a life that has gone. Negotiations can never.
That's what we have done, and our position is very clear. We can be able to make this a success, inshallah, God willing. We can be able to bring the doctors and the government together. We were with doctors this morning, breakfast, and the conversation is extremely palatable, very friendly, and we are asking this court not to investigate it will. We just want to be given 2 days, and we will make the nation realize what we are intending to do. That is the position of the client.
Thank you very much for stepping in to salvage this delicate situation and get doctors back to work. Do we take it that 2 days takes us to Monday?
Yes, for us it's today and tomorrow. Yes.
So we can mention the matter on Monday?
Absolutely.
Tuesday would be better. Tuesday. Yes.
Tuesday the 7th.
Yes. Most obliged.
Some more time.
Common sense is really
How you solve Give us a compliment.
after we finish. We're going to ask for prayer. I'll come down for coffee. No, sir, I
Reporting the Inter-Religious What is the name of the umbrella body of the faith-based organizations?
This is the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya.
Inter-Religious
Council of Kenya.
Council of Kenya.
This of course brings on board the Catholics.
Yes.
And the Anglicans. The Protestants. All the evangelists. All the faiths.
What is the imagination? Your imagination.
How the other things were.
You know, that's my thing. Yeah, all of them. By the time I realized, you know, they were not the became spoke. Instead of one issue. So they were unable to distinguish. You know what they have done now is what they have been doing all along. Some people that tell us
in writing.
You climb down so many times. In fact, eventually they tell me, we're all going to talk.
Alright, those are pictures live from the Supreme Court buildings in Nairobi, where the appeals court is sitting over the matter of the doctor's strike. Lady Justice Martha Koome is consulting the presiding judge there, is consulting the other judges on what directions to give in as far as this case is concerned. We've seen all the parties agreeing to the mediation efforts by the clergy, that is the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya. SUPKEM Secretary General, the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslim Secretary General Adan Wachu spoke at the courtroom. He said they only need 2 days. It's been 7 days, in fact not 7 days, it's been 88 days. Mediation process or processes have not worked, but they say they only need 2 more days to work this out. In studio we have governance experts, Ray Ochieng, we have Brian Mutie, and of course Kimani Mujiria, political commentator, is with us. I'll start with you, Raymond. They say they just need 2 days. We all hope it will work within 2 days. In fact, you could hear Lady Justice Koome joking about it and saying she's hoping a miracle will happen. That is almost a miracle if that happens, going by what we've been going through for the last 88 days, isn't it?
Yeah. Hussein, Kenyans are very hopeful, and there's a big challenge, and we must admit that our constitution talks about the Bill of Rights, and Kenyans have a right to health, and we must admit there's a big challenge, and we do hope that all the stakeholders are going to be coming together and making sure that these things comes to an end. And the nature of all this is in terms of allowing various bodies, and now we have seen the religious leaders also coming. I think that also gives the goodwill, and we reach a point whereby we hope that we are going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, because many lives are at stake and we need to sort our nation.
Right, Brian.
Indeed, Hussein, thank you so much. I think if you can see the aura in the courtroom is that of parties that are willing actually to break this stalemate in terms of health debacle that has actually crept from its onset up to today. I think it's almost 90 days now, and it's historic. It's historic in the sense that it has never happened anywhere in this country. But what I can say is that it's a move in the right direction. 2 days, I think, to me, if the parties are willing, they can actually break even and maybe offer some sort of solution to this debacle, Hussein.
What is it they're going to do that has not been done? What do you think they're going to do that has not been done? Ngujiri Wambogo, I think I called you Kimani Ngujiri. That's the name of a sitting MP, for not wrong.
I can see
I'm just wishing you the best.
I can see where you're going. I can see where you're going. I think for me, what I pick from this, you know, they say religion is where you go to when everything else is not working. And we have seen a lot of people put effort into this mediation between the doctors and the county government and the government. And we are all seeing what's happening in the country in terms of the suffering of Kenyans. And I think bringing in the religious sector is an admission by all sectors or all parties to this dispute that the existing structures are not working, whether it's the legal structures, whether it's the labor structures, labor laws, whether it's the CBA structure. Because when you bring in a religious leader, you now have to start discussing outside the box. So what I expect, and maybe I would have been a bit more cautious if I had been Sheikh Adan talking about that he's going to solve this in 2 days.
2 days, yes.
But hey, religion is about faith. And what they're telling us is that now we are going to deal with this issue outside the box, outside the existing structures. We're going to go into this thing and try and get people to reach their hearts rather than try and deal with their minds, because religion is a matter of the heart, it's not a matter of the mind. Try and get people to reach their heart, try and see whether there's a compromise that is possible.
Indeed.
And I think if they cannot make it in, if the religious leaders cannot make it, I think we are in a problem.
Indeed, Hussein, you ask a very good question, what they are going to do that they have never done before. And in conflict management, of course, you realize that there's a stage which we normally call the hurting stalemate, or the hurting stage, where all the parties are no longer willing to fight anymore, and the only thing that they can do is actually to put all their issues on the table and actually, you know, soften a little bit for solution to come from that kind of perspective. And therefore, I think this one has also taken the same direction. All the parties are no longer willing to fight or to hold on that kind of hard stance. And to me, I think they are willing to soften and, you know, see a durable solution to the problem at hand.
Right. I mean, Mujiri is saying what you should have been a bit more careful, I mean, giving a 2-day deadline. Although the SUPKEM Secretary General, because with the Interreligious Council of Kenya, says they met the doctors this morning. We know the clergy has already met President Kenyatta. Are we looking at something that has already been, I mean, there's already a solution in this already? Do you think there's already a solution before they decide to say we just need 2 days?
Hussein, I don't think right now we may put our fingers on a solution. What is clear here, and I agree with Mutie here, in terms of the conflict resolution, sometimes we have to look at the root causes. And this thing definitely supersedes the current regime. And it's something that was signed even before they came into the office. And also to cite what Ngujiri has said, we've reached a point whereby now we are going to God. And I believe one thing, there's a little bit of goodwill. You talk about the two divides, others are talking about impossibility in terms of the wage bill, we cannot sustain it. But on the other hand, I think the goodwill of also releasing the doctors from the prison should also send a message to them that this is a time that let's look for a win-win solution, and that would be what would be good for us as a nation.
Right. We've already seen, I mean, Kotu Secretary General trying and failed with Kenneth Sierra then. Kenneth Sierra again with the Law Society of Kenya tried and failed, and on Friday when these negotiations aborted, what we gathered is the doctors were angry that the government is not conceding anything. Mujiri.
I think what I would actually go back to my initial point. I think what we are seeing here is a situation where what has been discussed, or the parameters that they've been operating in, are no longer tenable. And I think the entrance of the religious leaders is to remove those parameters and say, guys, let's start afresh. Let's start, what is it that can actually work? I think all the parties have exhausted whatever options they had. I think all the parties have exhausted whatever discussion points that they had. I do not think, in fact, I get the feeling, and it might be a bit presumptuous of me, but I get the feeling that everybody wants the religious leaders in this conversation, because they allow you to then say, you know what, I did this for the sake of the country, I did this for the benefit of, because anybody else, all the other conversations they've been having were structured in a certain way. A religious conversation will not be structured. A religious conversation allows you to say whatever you want, and it also allows you to withdraw. I also get the feeling that the doctors especially have now reached a point where they're actually trying to get away out of this predicament. I think, especially with the recent rulings about the CBA and the exposure of the fact that the CBA was signed by somebody who was not in office, I think they are trying to figure out what is a dignified exit.
Right, Mujiri, I have to stop you there. Lady Justice, we'll come back to that conversation. Lady Justice Martha Koome has now started, the proceedings are back in, she's going to give a direction now as to what next. Let's listen in.
Was at least it becomes the basis upon which the negotiations can be moved forward. So we thank you as a court. This matter was listed for further mention today to record a consent on the mediation process between the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Pharmacists and Dentists Union, the Ministry of Health and the Council of Governors. That was undertaken following a consent order that was filed in this court on 16th February 2017. Counsel for all the parties agreed the mediators filed an interim report. However, no agreement has been reached yet because there are certain issues that have not been sorted out. But everybody is hopeful that with the support of the faith-based organizations that are in court today, under the auspices of the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, the remaining issues that have not been resolved are likely to be sorted out if given more time. Accordingly, bearing in mind the delicate nature of this public interest involved in this matter, we give the following directions. 1. The interim report filed by the mediators on 2nd March 2017 be treated as an interim report. The Inter-Religious Council of Kenya, who are represented in court today by high-ranking religious leaders, are around to participate in further negotiations on the remaining issues and to record a consent or the way forward on 7th March 2017. The matter will therefore be mentioned on 7th March 2017, and we are hopeful that it will be resolved and doctors will be back to work and the suffering to the public will come to an end. Have a good day.
Right, and those are the directions given by the appeals court, presiding judge there, Lady Justice Martha Koome. She has now said the matter will now be mentioned on the 7th March 2017, that is on Tuesday. It means there's more time now for the mediation process to go on. The Inter-Religious Council of Kenya has now been added to the negotiation team. Stephen Mogaka is a lawyer and has also now joined us in studio. Stephen Mogaka, thank you for making time for us and welcome. What do you make of those directions by Lady Justice Martha Koome?
Thank you, Mr. Hussein. I think this is the best that the Court of Appeal and the actors in the case could have come to, because short of that is creating a national crisis and bringing in the name of God, of the Spirit of the Almighty. I think is the best thing, although this is really where we ought to have started, because then sorry, yeah, this is where we really ought to have started, because then the hearts would not have been as strong and the positions as hard as they have been so far. But going forward now, and we believe in miracles, as one of the actors said, we expect that the 2 days allowed or sought and granted are sufficient for every party to look at itself, because we are really faced with a national crisis. Solutions are not easy because there is a contested sign, the CBA. There is a question of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, because you cannot treat doctors separately from other public officers. There is an issue of no less than the president having put an offer on the table which ties other public officers involved in the negotiations from overturning what no less than a president has put on the table. So it's a very intricate scenario. Right. But we do trust that with the indulgence the court has given, this matter should be able to come to some end. And unlike getting an answer from the court, which is adversarial, because with the court intervention, we will get a winner-loser. But with this mediation process, we expect to get a win-win situation, and every party is really required at this point in time to concede and be able to get a middle ground.
Right. We'll be trying to get the details of the report, the interim report that has now been filed and has been treated as an interim report by the appeals court. What do you think, Ray and Brian, I'll start with you, Brian, what do you think, what is the precedent that this sets again?
I think it sets a good, background for, reference. As a reference point, if I may put it that way. And again, it also offers that kind of a situation where parties also are able to feel that their interests are really taken care of, and they are able actually to build on that, at least to get what